What is up, everyone? Woo! Yeah, there's that good energy. How you guys doing? Yeah?
The guy at the back is really quiet.
Yeah. Are you guys excited? Yeah? Talk about moonshots, talk about philanthropy, talk about the importance of really executing these big picture visions into our world. It's gonna be, it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're really excited and very grateful to have Naveen here. All right, this is simulation. How many of you guys have been to simulation before? Yeah, little applause for those that have been, okay. How about those that have not? Whose first time is it? Yeah, let's get applause for you, yeah. Let's get applause for those having, good. It's like 50-50, that's good. All right, so simulation is rebirthing the public intellectual and inspiring you to build the future. We do so through a multidisciplinary daily show and live event series, and we're gonna scale these multidisciplinary events to sports stadiums. So if 22 football players can do it, so can 50,000 curious intellectuals. So let's get it all the way up there. All right, so that's a little bit about us. We are at WorkWise. WorkWise is an amazing space, and you guys definitely, yes, it's a beautiful space. This is Richard, one of the co-founders. You will be hearing just a very quick bit from Richard about the importance of WorkWise.
Hi, so really...
Yes.
Oh. So I want to start off really by just welcoming you all here for this evening. I want to thank Alan and Naveen, obviously, and for the team for bringing an event like this to our space. I particularly enjoy what simulations do. For me, it's all about the deep conversation, about asking the questions, sometimes the complicated ones and the challenging, and trying to find answers and change the world we all live in. I find it really relevant because it resonates with me about why I wanted to build WorkWise. Yeah, it's a co-working space. We've got offices and desks and rooms and phone rooms and meeting rooms. But for me, it's much more than that. We know that what people want, need, and respond to in the world of work is changing massively. We know that understanding people, each other, what we need, we know that that's the key to us building a community that really succeeds. One where we ask the questions, where we seek answers on how we can all work better, be better, help each other more. We want to challenge the accepted, build a new way of working, and change how people think about the workplace. Yeah, look, it's a space. It's got walls and windows and ceilings and aircon. But it's a community first, a real community. And one where we're lucky enough to host an evening like tonight, where conversations challenge us all, where the answers empower every single one of us. And that's what we're trying to do here at WorkWise. So all that remains to say is welcome all to the space. Thank you, as always.
Thanks,
have a great evening, everybody, and we hope to see you here soon.
Yes. Thanks. WorkWise rocks. Definitely check them out. Workwise.com, WERQWISE.com. Check them out. Definitely the future of working together. We all know that whatever's coming with artificial intelligence and the change in the workflows is definitely a really profound shift in what's going to happen. So let's get ready for it. We ask really thought-provoking questions. We have a really great guest tonight. You know Naveen as the man of Moon Express, the man of Viome, the man of the XPRIZE, just the man that is just dreaming big and helping other people dream big and execute. Let's give a big round of applause for Naveen Jain.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you for coming on to the show.
Awesome, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're just like, you're the man of moonshots. I love that. And you wrote a book about it now that's coming out.
Coming out book, yeah, that's called Moonshots, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a very exciting way to inspire more people to really get this picture of why we are, such a limited amount of time. We have 80 years on this damn planet, and it's an amazing place, but we only have 80 years. It's so short. So what better to do with our time than to dream the absolute biggest and go and execute that big fucking dream into the world? Yes. So tell us about that feeling for you.
Well, first of all, I mean, every one of us irrespective of how much I want to live forever, we still have a finite time on this planet. And that means, what is it that we can do? What are we willing to dedicate our lives to that will be meaningful? And to me, it really comes down to is, what is it that you want to do when you wake up in the morning? If any one of you, I don't care what thing you're doing, if you don't jump out of the bed at 4 a.m. and not have to put a snooze button, you're doing something wrong with your life. Right? You have to be able to figure out, what are you willing to die for? And then live for it. What is it that if you had everything in your life, whether it is billions of dollars, whether it is family, whatever you care about, if you had everything, what would you do? And if you do that today, it will get you everything that you always wanted. You go backward. You never ever focus on the end goal. Every one of the person who starts a company simply to make money will never get it. Making money is like having an orgasm. If you focus on it, you never get it. You just have to enjoy the process. Right? So if you enjoy the process, you will get it. But if you keep thinking you want it, you want it, you want it, you never get it. Right? So that's it.
Speaking
never
from first-person experience here.
Never think about it. But fact is that you have to focus on what you really love. And the only way you know what you really love is to do the thing that you would do when you don't need anything, right? So I am now on my 7th company. There is no reason for me at this age for me to be doing anything other than chilling on some warm island, right? And to me, I am doing this because this is what I call retirement. I am fully retired. I only do things that I absolutely love. There is not a thing, if it is not, I don't wake up in the morning and get excited about it. I say, time to leave and time to do something else. It has to be something where you never think twice. I never spend 30 seconds in the bed. I jump out of the bed thinking, what an amazing life. What an amazing life we are living. And that has to be every one of us in this room. If you don't believe you're living that life, where you wake up in the morning when someone says, how are you? You don't say fine. You say, one fucking amazing day. Right? And that's what needs to be every day. From the time you wake up to the time you hit the pillow, it has to be that amazing day where you say, I am blessed.
Naveen, you are blessed in many ways. You've worked very hard to become blessed, and a lot of people are still struggling, and that struggle makes it really difficult for them to come up with moonshots and jump out of bed in the morning and go execute moonshots. How do you envision a society that enables people to go for their moonshots?
It's a lot easier actually than it sounds. The people who come from I would say a background where they have resources, they tend to fall in love with those resources and they tend to not ever want to lose them. When you come from nothing, you have nothing to lose. Every time I wonder and saying, what is that worst thing that can happen to me? Don't have food to eat, don't have place to stay, been there, done that. There is nothing you can tell me that scares me anymore. What scares me is living a life that I don't enjoy. That scares the hell out of me. Is that, what if someday I am doing things I just didn't enjoy? I say, that is the right I give everyone I know. You have time to put a bullet through my head. I'm done. I'm a parasite on society. Right? The day I am taking more from the society than I'm giving back, I'm a parasite. That's the definition of a parasite. Right? If you find someone who has time to chase a small ball in a golf course, they have outlived their life. They should be the one, someone should say, let me take you out of your misery. Let me put you to pasture. Because they have really, if they have time to chase a small ball, if that's what their life is all about, playing golf, they're zombie. They shouldn't be living life.
Naveen, how about this one? Okay, so you're totally right that when we're in lower socioeconomic status, we have less to lose. So
That's part of it.
In a sense, that's part of it. But at the same time, that you can potentially be further away from these information superhighways that make it easier for you to achieve your goals that like people that have resources do.
So let me tell you, I mean, obviously, as most of you probably who know me know that I came from very humble background. Came, didn't have food to eat, didn't have place to stay, came to United States with $5, didn't speak the language.
Where were you?
I was in India.
Where in India?
And we had no place, so we moved from village to village. So we had no place we called home. But interesting thing is, when I came here, it was never about money. It was simply about doing something absolutely amazing. And I can tell you to date, I find it so much easier to raise money or to do things that are ambitious, the things that will fundamentally change the trajectory of how humanity is going to live, than to do something, another iPhone app, right? I tell you that if you want to go do something and you think you have nothing, the best way to do that is to tell someone, what if you could create a world and you can imagine that world. And all you have to do is not tell them what you do, tell them what the world would look like when that work is done. So every single time I start a company, I start with a simple visualization of what is it that world would look like if I am successful. So the current company that I'm working on is a company called Viome. And it says, imagine living in a world where illness is optional.
And before we get to...
No, I'm simply saying, I'm just trying to come down. The point is that was the statement we did. What if illness could be elective? What if illness was a choice? And that was the theme. People don't say, now all they can say is, tell me how. But that is the vision no one can argue is worth going after. Every company you start, what is that vision that you have that people say, I want to be part of that? And I'm going to tell you some amazing story of starting this company. So as you will know, that I am not a doctor, I am not a scientist.
Naveen, you're going to tell about starting Viome?
I'm going to just talk about starting a company.
Starting a company?
Yeah.
Okay. Just a quick prior to that is this sort of mentality of entrepreneurs being future leaders.
Okay.
You specifically have made it clear, like governments, no. This is entrepreneurs are the next iteration of world builders. And then within your story as well, yeah.
So I think what Alan is referring to is that I have been really in terms of thinking about how entrepreneurs are going to be the next superpower. I believe the problems that used to be the domain of nation states are going to now be solved by entrepreneurs. So if you go back and look at what is it that we expected the nation states to do, what is it that was going to space, looking at healthcare, looking at education, looking at creating, safety, looking at things like water, agriculture, food, and those were the things you relied on nation states. And for the simple reason, because we believed the individuals are not capable of solving those problems. A small group of people are not capable of solving this problem. And that has fundamentally changed. We are living in the most innovative time in the human history, where you and I and a small group of people simply believing what is possible can change the trajectory of how humanity is going to live. You look at today, my other company is a Moon Express, that is the only company in the universe that has permission to leave Earth orbit. Despite what you may hear from my friend at Elon or Richard or Jeff, none of them can leave the Earth orbit. They all stuck in the low Earth orbit. So someday they got to get ambitious. They can talk all they want, right? They can't leave Earth orbit right now. In fact, not only we can leave Earth orbit, we are the first company that has permission to land on any celestial body.
And what agency does one have to go and get this application?
That will take place. So Answer is there is no such agency. So when we were going to go and say we are going to go to the moon, we went to every 3-letter agency that you can possibly imagine. We went to NSA, we went to CIA, we went to DOD, we went to DOE, we went to FAA, we went to every 3-letter agency, and everyone told us, are you kidding us? I can give you 100 reasons why we will never allow that. And even if you were to satisfy every one of our concern, all I can say is don't say no, but I can't say yes because it's not in our charter. There is no place, any department that says come here for mission approval to the mission to the moon. There is no department. So how do you do that? And that is the story of being an entrepreneur. All I'm trying to say is that when we land on the moon next year, not only we become the first private company, we symbolically become the 4th superpower to ever landed on the moon. How do you become that 4th superpower? Simply by doing things that no other nation, state, or anyone else has done. Now, same thing is going to happen in every industry, and I'm going to tell you more specifically how. One of them is like healthcare. Healthcare is not going to be solved by Obamacare or Trump care or even Putin care. It's not going to be solved by them. It's going to be solved by some entrepreneur saying enough is enough, and we're going to go do that. No different than what happened in the energy or electric vehicle. Elon, as much as you love him or hate him, you got to admire. The guy has balls of steel, right? No one told him that no automotive company has been created in the last 50 years. And you want to create an electric car company? You're crazy. He went and did that. Today is the market cap higher than the GM and Ford. How did that happen? One man can change that. How are you going to find the batteries? I'm going to build the biggest damn gigafactory that can be built. The point was, one single person's vision can change the way we live. It is today, how do you create abundance of energy? How do you create abundance of food? How do you create abundance of water?
Versus the scarcity mentality.
Versus the idea is, even your mindset, how do you change your mindset from thinking about scarcity to thinking about abundance? The only reason we value anything is because we believe those things are finite in resources. If something is finite, they have value. Something that is infinite or in abundance has no value. We fight over things because we believe if they are finite, if someone else has it, I can't have it. There is only limited quantities, and that's why we fight over. We fight over land. We fight over water. We fight over energy. All the wars are fought over those things. Now imagine, we're living on a planet where every 90 minutes, more energy, more solar energy falls on this planet every 90 minutes than we use in the whole year. Simply a matter of conversion.
Every time the space station orbits.
Right? Every single time. Think about it. Yeah, every 90 minutes a space station, right? It's simply a matter of conversion. Now go back and look at what happened in the past. The most precious metal on earth used to be aluminium. It was so rare because it was never found in a pure form. It was always found in the form of bauxite. And to extract aluminium from bauxite used to be extremely expensive. So expensive that when Napoleon wanted to show his wealth to the king of Siam, he served him with the aluminium platter to show that how rich he is. In fact, so much so that tip of the Washington monument in Washington DC is not platinum, is aluminium. It was done to show the Britishers, we have arrived, we are the rich country, we can put on the top the aluminium that nobody can afford. We throw it away today. Why is that? A technology called electrolysis came about that changed that. What is that electrolysis of the solar power? That will change the efficiency from 22%, 25% to 35%. If that's all we did, we will have abundance of free energy. And people say, well, it doesn't matter. People will always fight over resources because humans are greedy. Humans always fight. It doesn't matter how much you have, they want more. Until you remind people, what is it that we don't fight over? Air. 70,000 of us can sit in a stadium and never tell someone, hey, move, you're taking my air, my oxygen. We all can enjoy. Why? Because inherently we believe it is abundant, it is free, it's democratized, demonetized, it's completely free for everyone. What if the energy was the next air? It is free. And when you have the abundance of free energy, you can have abundance of free, fresh water. The dirtiest water in Africa can be distilled and you have fresh, clean water. Just that. What if we have abundance of food, free food? What would that world look like? Why do we believe today the land is only the land we live in today? Why can't we live on any place we want, whether it is Moon or Mars or Titan or Europa? And people say, oh, wait for a second here. That is impossible. Don't you know they have high radiation? What protects humans on Earth is because we have atmosphere. It protects from all the radiation. And you say, that's right. However, why you believe the humans can be radiation resistant? That is just not possible. Now, think about it for a second. We find bacteria growing in radioactive nuclear waste, the highest radiation possible. And the organisms have not, nature has not only figured out how to protect its DNA from radiation, it has also figured out how to use the radiation as a source of energy. Now imagine if we can take a genetic material, the genes from these bacteria, in vivo, use CRISPR to modify ourselves. Not only we become radiation resistant, we also don't need to eat food anymore. In the evening, you hold the hand of your honey and say, honey, do you want to go out and get some radiation? And that's your food. And the food simply becomes something social we do, right? It's just like, I mean, today, hate to say it, but sex used to be only for procreation. Today, we only use it for social purposes, right? Food can be the same thing. We only use food just because we want to be social. Not because you need to eat food for energy. Energy can come from n number of other sources, whether it is radiation or it could be n number of other ways we can get the energy that body needs. We can modify our human body to do that. And we can still be flesh. People talk about gravity. Again, we may look different because every time you are on low gravity, you don't need all the bone mass to keep your structure alive. And that we may evolve to live on low gravity. The point really is there is nothing that you can't solve. For the first time, we have the technology at our disposal to be able to solve many of the problems. The reason people don't solve problem is most of the time people tend to get stuck at solving a problem that simply is the symptom, not the root cause. So let me give you an example, and then, yeah, and then I'm going to move on to the next subject. Look at, people talk about having lack of fresh water, and people say that's one of the biggest problems facing humanity is lack of fresh water, and they want to figure out how to create more water. And people say, can we create some type of nano filters that can desalinize the water? Can I go take a dirty water and filter through the things that will kill the viruses and bacteria, and you'll be able to do that. Until you realize that majority of the fresh water is actually used in agriculture. And you say, all I have to do is solve the agriculture problem. Can we use aquaponic agriculture, aeroponic agriculture, or even use the seeds that are lightly modified so they can use the lightly salted water? And I have abundance of fresh water. And now I have solved the real problem. Until you realize that majority of the agriculture is actually used for feeding the cattle. And all I have to do now is solve the problem of people eating meat. And what if we can create meat using stem cell, take a stem cell of a cow and simply grow the muscle tissues instead of growing any other tissue that we don't eat. And suddenly a fresh water problem really becomes a synthetic biology problem. because you understand what is the root cause rather than what the symptom is. And you can do that, by the way, with every technology. You look at self-driving car, it is pretty obvious how self-driving car is going to disrupt automotive industry. You may not need to own a car because it will be available to you whenever you need it. Today you need a Prius because you're going too far, or next day you need a Ferrari because you want to be able to impress your girlfriend. And it's there. But that is just the primary industry that's get disrupted. What people don't realize is secondary and tertiary industries that are going to be disrupted with a single technology. If you have a self-driving car that has all the sensors and they're always talking to each other, you can drive the cars much closer to each other than humans can ever do. That means you don't need to build as many roads. What happens to the construction industries? The caterpillars of the world. Same reason now, if you don't have to have the car parked right where next to where you work, what happens to all the parking garages and the parking lots? Can they become the affordable housing? Suddenly you have the real estate industry that's going to be disrupted. If these cars are not getting into accidents, what happens to the auto insurance? If people are not dying in the auto, what happens to the life insurance industry? And you can go on and on and on, and you can start to see that how single technology can disrupt tens of industries that are secondary and tertiary. And I can give examples of almost every technology, how that is going to impact many of these industries.
That way of viewing the world is crucial. First of all, the identifying the roots of problems, and then also kind of the way that these new innovations have the, like you said, secondary, tertiary ways that they impact society. Because if you take and look at a lot of the kids that are being born and raised into the world, what are we teaching them in the education system? Are they learning about artificial intelligence? Are they learning about biotechnology? Are they learning about these exponential technologies that are revolutionizing our world? Because these are the ways to prepare the children for the future. And Naveen, maybe a question before we continue on to...
You want to talk about education?
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts about this, because you obviously with XPRIZE is working on a couple projects related to education, especially the one that you were teaching me about today about literacy. That one's huge in math and language and science literacy. But in just 18 months, how do you teach someone that doesn't know anything? But how about just in general, from a perspective of education, are you a man that thinks that there are some sort of foundational principles that every child should understand and learn as they're birthed into the world?
Yeah. So, look at education and healthcare, and I'm going to spend time on both of them for just briefly here. So, in both cases, it is pretty obvious that people believe that, our education system and our healthcare system is broken. It's just not working. It turns out that neither of the system is actually broken. They're both doing exactly what they were designed to do. So our education system was designed to teach us skills. And those skills we could use for the rest of our life in the industrial era, and life was wonderful. You needed 5,000 people in machinists, you need 10,000 accountants, we need 20,000 people who knew this, and life was wonderful. In the world of exponential technologies, it doesn't matter what skill you learn, by the time you graduate, that skill has become obsolete. Then what is that education system is supposed to do? Well, it has to rethink, not that the education system is somehow broken. It needs to be reimagined and rethought. How do we teach learning to learn, learning to collaborate? No longer about having expertise in a subject, because the problems don't tend to be unidisciplinary. Problems are multidisciplinary, then you have to teach kids multidisciplines. In today's education system, it is all about an individual. So if I have a problem, and if I say, hey Alan, what do you think is the right answer? In today's education system, we call that cheating. So if I go to him and say, hey Alan, here's the problem, what do you think is the answer? Oh, you're cheating. In work, we call that a teamwork, right? Collaboration. And how do you teach that? So the interesting thing is, all the things we can now figure out what the new problem is and what the new solutions are. It's not that somehow the old thing is broken. The same way of looking at it is, if you look at your grandpa And many of the people probably don't remember the flip phones. Do you remember the old Motorola flip phones? Right? If your grandpa is using that phone and you said, Grandpa, your phone is broken. He's going to say, what part of it's broken? It's doing what it was designed to do. I press dial and it dials the phone. But Grandpa, it doesn't play Angry Bird. Well, it wasn't designed to play Angry Bird, right? So point is, it's not that things is broken, it just has a different purpose. Now, same thing is true for healthcare, and before I go there, I just wanted to spend one more minute on this education thing. In entrepreneurship, the reason a lot of the entrepreneurs are afraid to do something is because they believe they don't know much about that subject, right? So I say, hey, how can I go out and start a company in AI? I know nothing about AI. How am I going to start a company in healthcare? I know nothing about human biology. And it turns out, when you are an expert on any field, you are more or less useless in that field. And here's why I say useless. If you are an expert, the best you can do is to make an incremental improvement into what you know. If you are an expert, you can make something 10% better than what anyone else has done. But if you want to change something 10 times or 100 times, you have to be a non-expert. And it's not about thinking outside the box. It's about thinking in a completely different box. Applying the knowledge of one industry to completely different industry. And that's how you fundamentally change that industry. When I came to, and my other company, every company, by the way, I've done, no two companies have ever been in the same industry. I always felt that once I've gotten one company right, I don't want to do the same thing, same industry, because I'll just be better than someone else. I won't be able to disrupt it. So when I started my company in the aerospace, I didn't even know a thing about it. In fact, the first time I remember we said, I said, how do you go to the moon? Every time I look at it, it keeps moving. How do you go to some place that keeps moving? And they say, well, there is orbital dynamics, and they're teaching me all that. I say, that sounds pretty interesting, actually. Now, how do we go there? And they all say, well, you have to build this big, massive rocket that can go to the moon. I come from the software world, and I said, why do you have to write a monolithic code? Why can't you write modular stuff? One thing goes here, and the second thing takes over, and you go there. And the first thing they say, well, because that will never work. That's why you do it this way. And I asked them, why do you think it won't work? And they say, are you a rocket scientist? I say, I'm not, but you are. Why don't you tell me? And they start explaining, and as they're explaining, and they say, it might work. And I say, keep explaining, tell me why it might work. Mm-hmm. By that, an hour later, they say, holy shit, that's a bright idea. It's a bright idea because they never ever thought this could be done. Now imagine, the first time when we landed on the moon, it cost us $1 billion. Our cost of going to the moon now is going to be under $10 million.
Tell us a bit about how we can get there.
So we basically decided that we don't need to have a big rocket. What if we simply take a smallest possible rocket that goes to the low Earth orbit? And by the way, you can now buy them on the website. You can go to rocketlabs.com and say, buy a rocket, put it in the shopping cart, and it says $5 million. And we put 5 of them on the shopping cart, and we call the CEO and says, look at the shopping cart, that's 5 of them. How much discount do you think we can get? Right? And we got them for 3.75. Right? My point is, you can buy a rocket on a website now, right? That's what the world we live in. Now, we bought a rocket for $4 million, and we built the lander, and our whole cost, and the lander, everybody thought you want a custom this and the custom that. How are you going to detect where you are on space? You need these fancy cameras to be able to know where you are and to be able to compare them. You know what we did? We bought GoPros, and we took the casing of the thing out, and we put the new casing in that changed the GoPro, right? Point was, every single sensor, to do the LiDAR, to essentially know how fast you're going and how far away from you are the moon surface, what you do is you shoot the laser down and you look the thing back up, and you know how far you are and how fast you're going. When we started the company, they told us it's going to cost $1 million. And we bought them now for under $500 because these are the same sensors that use them in the self-driving cars. My point is, all the sensors that are needed to land on the moon are the ones that are on our iPhone, that are on our self-driving cars. So all these exponential technologies are making all these things cheaper, smaller, and lighter. So everything that makes the iPhone thinner and cheaper and more powerful is exactly what allows us to go to the moon faster, cheaper, better, right? And those
you point to such a crucial thing also, which is the question that you asked, why does it have to be this way? And if people would just reply to the question with an open mind and say, let's explore that, then you can get to new innovations and creations rather than just a closed-minded perspective.
And that is an interesting point, and part of it is two parts. One is being intellectually curious, and other part is being dumb enough to ask. If you are an expert and you tell, seriously, if you are a molecular biologist and you start asking a question which is really basic, people are going to look at you and say, huh? Which university did you get the degree from? Being an immigrant, a village boy, nobody ever questions. He says, hey, I'm a village boy, what do I know? Why don't you explain this to me? Right? And when you start asking them really, really basic questions, it suddenly you start to rethink and reimagine. So one of the things that also about education I was going to mention is that,
like the good old question of, who are you? Or
who are you?
Who am I? Yeah.
I'll come back to that too in a second here.
Let's also make sure we get to Viome as well.
Yeah, we will.
We'll have some Q&A as well.
Okay, we'll get to that then. So what I was trying to say was that today, whether you are a teacher or you are a parent, the thing you always struggle with is, I can only take you to the water. I cannot make you drink. I can only do so much. I just can't do any further. And the reason is that is the wrong question to ask, and that's the wrong problem to solve. What if my job is not to take you to the water or make you drink? What if my job is simply to make you thirsty? What if I make you thirsty? Not only you will find your own water and you will be drinking. What is the thirst that you can create in humans? It's called intellectual curiosity. Once you give that intellectual curiosity to your children, rest of their life, they're set. They're looking for water all the time. They're drinking that water all the time because you keep telling them, what if?
I love that insatiable curiosity, that appetite.
What if? And that what if. So the things that I always tell our children was, ask, what if that was possible? What would that world look like? And use the word imagine. There is no more powerful word. If you are ever looking to raise money or making a pitch, don't start with anything you do. This is the only word that takes away all preconceived ideas that people have. All I have to say is imagine. And your mind is wide open right now to anything I want to tell you to imagine. You're ready for it. It blanks out your space for you to create a new space. Imagine a world
where 50,000 curious intellectuals.
Right, whatever that is, right? That is the beauty. And the thing has to be something people can visualize. What you can't say is, imagine a company that is big, that is really powerful, that is really has biggest market share in this. And people are thinking, I don't know how to imagine that, right? It has to be a picture you can imagine, visualize. And let me tell you the difference is, Martin Luther King, what did he say? He didn't say, I want a imagine the racial equality. I can't imagine that. He said, imagine a white boy holding the hand of a black girl walking together. Anybody can imagine that. That is the visualization I'm talking about, right? So when I say, imagine a world where no one is sick, no one is suffering. That's a world you can see, that would be an amazing world. And the only question you can ask me after that is, I love it, how do we get there?
Let's talk about that.
Right?
This was a blast. We did an unboxing video of Viome. It was very funny when I opened up the little, how many of you guys have done Viome? in here? Maybe by applause. Has anyone done Viome yet? Okay, well, you get there's a discount, use code simulation, you can get a discount, $100 off, but this is so interesting because when you open it up, there's actually a very fun experience, which is you get to strap.
You got to no, before you do, what is it that is this does? So you want to, okay, Alan, you're the expert at it. So why don't you tell me what?
No, I'm not the. You're the expert. But there is a very hilarious part of this, which is that you get to take a sample of your poop, and that is a really great way of understanding what's going on inside your microbiome, and then you get insights from Viome.
Okay, so if you think about what makes us human is not the genes that we get from our mom and dad, which is what we always thought. Our DNA is what makes us human. It's very interesting that coming from completely outside, the things that completely shocked me, and I want to share them with you because I think they're just funny, interesting. We as humans, we have more foreign cells in our body than human cells. Everybody knows that, right? Now let me tell you something more interesting then. What makes us who we are is not our genes, but the genes that are expressed, right? Because the DNA is simply the alphabet. It is what is expressed. The RNA is really makes us who we are, because we all have identical gene in every part of our body. Our hair is the same DNA that our tooth. There is a reason why I don't have a tooth growing here and the hair growing in our mouth. It's gene expression, that some genes are underexpressed, overexpressed, or not expressed is what makes us who we are. Our human DNA only produces about 22,000 genes. The microbes in our gut produce 2 million to 20 million genes. That means at the most we are 1% human. If you look at all the population of the human beings on earth and you had 5,000 earth, there will still be less human beings than the number of organisms in a single human gut.
Out of the 2 million or so of the gene expressions in here, how many of them are bacteria versus fungi?
So the 40 trillion of them live inside our gut. 40 trillion of them live inside our gut.
Is that bacterial?
The bacterial, viruses, yeast, fungus, mold, all of them combined.
Do you know what approximate proportion?
Yeah, so there is a large percentage of them are bacterial. But even the small portion of them that are viral, and also the ones that I would say are phages, those are the viruses that only infect the bacteria. They don't infect the human cells, they infect the bacterial cells. And those phages are very, very important. In fact, most people have never looked at these phages. The interesting thing that I was going to point out was, it turns out in the last 10 years, there is not a scientific literature that talks about every single chronic disease. When I say chronic disease, whether you call them by name, Parkinson's, Alzheimer, depression, anxiety, obesity, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, heart diseases, cancer, every one of them, they have one thing in common. A chronic diseases are caused by the chronic inflammation, and the chronic inflammation is caused by the imbalance of your gut. So you don't take my word for it, just Google Parkinson's and microbiome, and it will show you that Parkinson's starts in the gut 15 years before you see it in your first symptom. Alzheimer, autism. In fact, there was a research that was published a month ago that says the mother's microbiome during pregnancy has a direct effect on the chances of autism in the kid. So when mom is pregnant, mom's microbiome changes the autism chances for the autism in the kid. Now, I want to just give you a little bit more interesting stuff that I learned from just being in this space. What I didn't realize was that almost everything that we eat today first comes in contact with the microbiome, and they convert them into nutrients. That means the food we eat is not the food that body gets. Our human body is like a donut. There is a tube that goes through the middle, right? There is an input and there is an output. There is a tube there, right? In between are the gut organisms that are actually taking that food converting them into the nutrients that are absorbed in the body. Our microbiome trains our immune system. So if you know, 70% of all the immune system is along our gut lining. 70%. It trains all the stuff. So much so, one would argue that our organisms actually created us for their own benefit. And Alan, if you will indulge me, if I could tell the story of how humans were created.
Is this more of a hypothesis, or how certain are you about this story?
This is a tongue-in-cheek story that has a full scientific basis on it, and I'll tell you the scientific basis right after I tell my tongue-in-cheek story. So this is a story that I always try to explain what is these microbiome and what are these things are, and people say, ick, they can't be inside us, we should kill them all. What people don't realize is that our human DNA is simply needed for us to be born. What keeps us alive are the gut organisms. Without them, we are actually dead. We cannot function. So you imagine
it's like
that
a happy marriage.
Well, I don't know about that, what marriage you have. In this particular case, they take everything, we do it for them. So if that's the kind of marriage you have, then you have a very happy marriage.
So they're in control.
They're in control. So let me tell you how it all happens. So I have a story, it's called How Humans Were Created. So close your eyes, and now like a child, I'm going to tell you a bedside story. So we all know that organisms started on this planet Earth about 3.5 or 4 billion years ago. You started to see these amoebas and single cell organisms. They've been around for billions of years. Humans are only about a couple of million years old. How did humans come to be? So here's how I think all happened. One day, all the organisms are getting together, and they all looked at each other and said, we're sick and tired of living in this small space. We want to take over the world. And they all looked at each other. One of them said, Master, I have an idea. What's your idea? What if we can create something bipedal? Trillions of us could live right inside it. We can make it crave any food we want, and they're going to run around and find that food for us. All we have to do is keep this thing healthy. This bipedal thing is going to go all over the world. It's going to poop everywhere. It's going to spread us around, and we're going to take over the world. And they created humans. Right after they created humans, they realized the problem. Just like today, we are worried about artificial intelligence, and we wonder, what if someday AI becomes smarter than us? What is going to happen to us humans? These organisms are no dumb. They reassembled and say, Master, Master, what have we done? Aren't you worried? Someday, this thing we created called humans, what if they became smarter than us? What are we going to do about that? Master says, relax, we took care of that problem. Master, what is the secret? Master says, remember, inside their cell, the human cell, this thing they call mitochondria, they forgot it is one of our bacterial brother right inside their cell. It is the bacteria that is inside the human cell that supplies all the energy to their cell. We sit here in the gut, we are constantly communicating with the mitochondria. Anytime they go out of control, we shut the energy down, they are dead. They better take good care of us. Master, that's really brilliant, but you're not even thinking right now. They're starting to develop this thing called brain. What are we going to do about the brain thing? Master says, that's the first thing we thought about when we created them. How so, Master? Remember, we all live in the gut. We put a direct connection from the gut to the brain, and they call that a vagus nerve. And they thought they're going to name it after Las Vegas, thinking what happens in the gut is going to stay in the gut. They are so wrong. What happens in the gut goes everywhere. In fact, what makes them feel good, this serotonin thing, we don't let them produce much of that. 90% of that we produce it ourselves right here. We control their mood, we control their behavior, we control their amygdala, we control their prefrontal cortex. But just like a good leader, we make them think they are the one who are making the decision. We simply sit here, we pull all the strings, and the puppet simply moves. So sit back, relax, we have taken over the world. And ladies and gentlemen, that's who we are. We are simply the puppets for these organisms. Now, in that tongue-in-cheek story, let me tell you the scientific basis now. So if you are really smart,
soon we'll be the ones that are being controlled by artificial intelligence.
So what if they are the one who are creating the artificial intelligence to take control of us? Anyway, going back to it, just Google, there is an article that was published in the Nature magazine 3 months ago, how microorganisms use microRNA interference, mRNA interference, to control our amygdala and prefrontal cortex for their own benefit. Think about that for a second. There is also a whole study done on microbiome and mitochondrial connection in aging. In fact, there was a study published this morning on how they are able to completely remove the wrinkles from old mice by changing the mitochondria. And that mitochondrial functions will change simply by the microbiome, changing the microbiome. So everything that I said, it sounds like something would be science fiction, but that science fiction may just be the truth, that we are nothing but a portable container for these microorganisms. And we are to large extent there to spread them and be controlled by them. And any time when we don't take care of them is what caused the diseases. What is a disease? Disease is simply the body not being at ease. Whenever we have the imbalance on our gut, our body becomes uneasy. It's called dis-ease. Dis-ease is what we call disease. Our pharmaceutical companies love people being sick. Our whole healthcare system is designed to keep us sick. I'm not talking about communicable diseases, by the way. Healthcare system does an amazing job when you have a communicable disease. So if you have an infection or if you have an acute need, our healthcare system is perfect. It was designed for that, just like our education system. What it wasn't designed was for chronic diseases. It was designed for episodic sickness, not for the chronic sickness. Chronic sickness happens when you have chronic inflammation, when you have a chronic imbalance in the gut. Now imagine when you have a chronic disease, whether it's a diabetes or obesity or pick a name you want, no one cares why. They don't want to look at the root cause. You have autoimmune disease, they don't try to figure out why do you have autoimmune disease. What do? Suppress the immune system, which is what the Humira does. Every single autoimmune disease, they suppress the immune system. And you ask the doctor, if you suppress the immune system, don't you think I'm going to get a whole bunch of other diseases? Oh yeah, but we got drugs for them. So you take a drug for one disease, it causes 3 more diseases. Guess what happens? They give you a drug for 3 more diseases now. You have 9 more diseases. And by the time you get old enough, you're popping more pills than blueberries. That's the problem. Every time you get chronic disease, there is someone out there in a pharmaceutical company, person sitting there say, ka-ching! Rest of their life, they got a subscriber. They got a subscription business going there. Your doctor makes money when you're sick. Your hospital makes money when you're sick. Your pharmaceutical companies make money you're sick. And you're wondering, isn't that the insurance company wants to keep me healthy because they're making the money when we are healthy? It turns out not so. And here's why. Insurance companies are regulated. By law, now imagine, by law, they have to give 85% of all the premium they collect back to the policy holders. If they keep the policy holders healthy, they have to give the money back. They cannot make any more than 15%. So if they keep you healthy, they make less money, less absolute money. What do they learn? Let's bring on more chronic diseases, because more the premium, the more money they are making, because they can only keep 15%.
What does the ideal society look like for?
Ideal society looks like a society that takes control of their own health. So the only person in the healthcare business who doesn't want to be sick, who is that? The person who is sick. What did we do? We started a company that said we're going to go direct to the person who is sick. We're going to tell them what is going on inside their gut at a molecular level, and then we're going to tell them what to do about it. We're going to tell them what foods they should be eating that are good. We're going to tell them what foods are bad for them. What we learned was very interesting. There is no such thing as universal healthy food. Popeye was wrong. Popeye thought that spinach was good for everyone. It turns out about half the people, spinach causes more harm than good. And here's why. Spinach has very large quantity of oxalic acid, oxalate. If you do not have in your gut the organisms that can detoxify oxalic acid into something benign, that oxalate is going to end up as a kidney stone or worse, cause other inflammation. And then people say, oh, that is fine. But all of the antioxidative stuff like pomegranate juice, raspberry, almonds, they got to be good for everyone. It turns out none of these things actually have antioxidative qualities. Pomegranate juice has something called allergic acid. Allergic acid is not antioxidative. Allergic acid, if you have the right enzymes and the peptides produced by your gut organisms, can get converted into something called urolithin A, ULA. And urolithin A is what gives the antioxidative properties when it's absorbed in the body. Majority of us cannot convert allergic acid into urolithin A. The best you're doing is pissing off your money, or the worst, it's causing you inflammation.
And your microbiome is about 95% different than mine is. And for each one of us, then I can process maybe carrots differently than you do, the spinach differently, raspberries differently, etc.
So it's very interesting. Our human DNA, any two of us have 99% same DNA. When it comes to our microbiome, less than 5% is same. Now, you say all this knowledge is something you didn't create. Everyone knows microbiome is important. And some of you may have done the microbiome test before. Why is it the science has never gotten there? And the reason is the science could never actually look at what was going on inside your body, in your gut, what the microorganisms were producing. And I don't want to go too technical, but I'm going to just give you a basic idea of how far the science has come and what is allowing us to do it now. And only us, we can do that. And again, you have to understand, I didn't start this company because I need to make more money. You can just take my word for it that there is nothing that I want today that I can't have. So the only reason I dedicate my life to doing this is because this is my way of giving back to the society. I came from nothing and the society gave me everything I have. And the only way I know how to give back to the society is to do things that's going to make billions of people's life better. So only technologies that were existing was culture. So people could culture the stool and find out what bacteria were there in that thing. It turns out 70% to 80% of all the organisms that are inside our gut are anaerobic. That means as soon as they're exposed to oxygen, they're dead. So you couldn't culture them. So we never knew what was there. Then came about the technology called 16S. 99% of all the companies that are out there doing the microbiome test, they're scamming you. They use something called 16S. So when you Google and you see 16S, so companies like Ubiome, American Gut Project, Biome, every one of them just use 16S because it's really, really cheap. 16S, first of all, cannot detect any virus, fungus, yeast and mold. Even the bacteria, it can only detect at a genus level. At a genus level, every human being on planet has the same genuses. At a genus, what is the genus? So if you ask me, say, Naveen, you're from India, tell me what's the genus of India? I would say, well, there are some men there, there are some women there, there are some young people, there are some old people. And you say, but the same as America. And you say, yeah, that's the same. But you know, India has a lot of crime. And you're telling me there are a lot more women in India? Women must be criminal. And that's really what all we were doing, was saying, oh, you got more bacteroidetes than firmicutes. Boom, that's it. But you don't say, at a genus level, it doesn't matter. So genus are man or woman. Species will be, is it Paula or is it John, is it Alan? Strain will be, what are the functions they could be doing? Are they entrepreneur, the electrician? What is most important is not even that. What's most important is, what is that they're doing right now? What function are they performing? Are they producing stuff that's good for you, or are they producing the stuff that's bad for you? So some companies do something called metagenomics, which is DNA analysis. DNA only tells you what can happen.
I think this part's so important that you're teaching right now.
Yeah.
Just the fact that there are different levels of understanding something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and different businesses that do these different sort of levels of understanding. Yeah. This in itself can teach us so much about how much are we going in depth into understanding ourselves. Yeah. Surface level, really deep.
Isn't he good?
I'm very amateur. Yes, continue.
Now, I was saying was that, so DNA analysis can tell you all the organisms at a strain level. What is the downside of that? Every time we eat any food, whether it's a plant or meat, all of the viruses and the bacteria that's coming from plant or food, when you look at the microbiome in the poop, all of them show up. They're all dead because DNA lasts for a long, long time. You see all the false positive of all the DNA that exists that may not be in your gut. Second part is, you still have no idea what they are actually doing, because organisms, hundreds of different organisms can be producing the same thing. And that is one of the problems that used to happen. People look at two people, and let's assume both are obese, right? And you say, this person has these set of organisms, and this person has totally different set of organisms, and the both are obese or both are diabetic. It can't be the microbiome because they're so different. It can't be that. What they were missing was, they didn't realize they were all doing exactly the same thing. What causes obesity and what causes the diabetes is inflammation. And if they're both producing the compound called LPS, lipopolysaccharide, which is highly inflammatory, then it doesn't matter what organisms are there, you're looking at what they are producing. And that is where the change happened. So here's how I ended up starting this company. I was at Los Alamos National Lab. How many people know what Los Alamos National Lab is famous for? Atomic bomb. They know how to kill people. So even though it was called Manhattan Project, it was not done in Manhattan. I can tell you that. It was done at Los Alamos National Lab in New Mexico, in a town called Los Alamos. They were working on a biodefense technology, trying to figure out if a bad actor were to get hold of something biological, how would we ever know what's making people sick? So they came up with a technology that is able to look at any bodily fluid, and it can analyze the RNA of what organisms are there, and more importantly, what are they producing? What enzymes are being produced? What peptides are being produced? What is going on inside the body? When they were describing this technology, how they do this biological weapon detection, and I said, wow, if I know what's making people sick, why can't I just simply license the technology and keep people healthy? And that we basically ended up getting an exclusive license to this technology, and I launched Viome. And the beauty of the things what I'm about to tell you is that something you should do yourself.
This is metatranscriptomics is what?
Metatranscriptomics is called RNA analysis, metatranscriptomics.
RNA analysis, so you're getting a dynamic view of what's going on.
What is exactly the microbes are producing. Nobody can do that. This took $2 billion of government money, that means our taxpayer money. What I'm about to tell you is something you guys should really try it yourself, which is you can go to NASA, every single government agency, all the technology that they have spent hundreds of billions of dollars, you have a right to own that technology. So I went to NASA JPL. They have an amazing sensor that can detect smallest, faintest light and tell you what that light is coming from, which is called Hubble telescope, right? A delta doped UV sensor. I saw that and I'm thinking, wow. I was reading a magazine, and it was talking about that how all bacteria have something called autofluorescence under UV light. That means if you can shine a UV light on this at 120 to 160 nanometer, it will shine a autofluorescence at 300 to 320 nanometer. And I'm thinking, wow, why can't I just use this tiny sensor with a camera, and anytime you're sick, you spit and you look at the camera and say, you have a bacterial infection, take antibiotics, or you don't need the antibiotics anymore. That's simple. My point is, you can go to any of the stuff in any lab, Lawrence Berkeley, Lawrence Livermore, Los Alamos, CDR, any one of the lab, and you can see any technology you want. You are a citizen of this country, you get to see whatever you want, and you can license it. And you don't have to pay much for it. In fact, if you're smart, you don't have to pay anything for it. And that's amazing. I can, give you a whole bunch of things I learned about, from the babies. When the babies are born, people used to think they're sterile in the womb. It turns out they're not so. Amniotic fluid has microbiome of the mother, placenta, and so does the cord blood. The first time the baby is going through the birth canal, this is where they are exposed to the microbiome. In fact, when the baby is born through C-section, it is completely deprived of the microbiome that comes through the birth canal. And most of those children now, you will see they have allergies, eczema, and a whole bunch of other chronic diseases. And I'm not suggesting remotely that we should never have C-section, but people who do C-section simply elective. In China, 50% of the babies born are through C-section, because they believe if they're born at a certain time of the day and certain hours that has 8 in it, 8 something, it is really, really good for them. And they do essentially elective surgery without realizing what they're doing to the baby. In fact, what surprised me really was the breast milk not only has the mother's microbiome coming through the breast milk, it also has the antibodies, but most importantly, the first 7 days, 10 days of the mother's milk is full of colostrum that cannot be digested by the human body. That colostrum is only there to feed the baby, baby's microbiome. That cannot be digested by the human body, can only be digested by the microbiome, and they convert that microbiome, because it's all fibrous, into a short chain amino acids that are good for the baby. So imagine what nature is really telling us. I just created the offspring, and only way I can keep this offspring healthy is not to feed it, but to feed them.
So Naveen, I get Viome, I get through this process of understanding this dynamic state of my microbiome.
So I'm coming back to the, I hate talking about the company, because really, to me is about imparting knowledge. I mean, I don't want you to think that I'm here to sell you anything. That's just not what I want to do. The company that I started was simply for simple reason. I was tired of seeing people sick, and I rarely share the story. One of the genesis was that my father got diagnosed with a pancreatic cancer. And it is so obvious, all the research that shows that pancreatic cancer happens when your gut microbiome, through leaky gut, goes into pancreas, shuts down the immune system, and allows the cancer to grow. And I just don't know what to do. We are still early in that stage to be able to solve the cancer problem. We even see that now, whether the immunotherapy, whether it works or does not work, depends on your gut microbiome. So if you just Google immunotherapy and microbiome, it will show you that they have proven now that they can predict when you do immunotherapy whether it's going to work or not, simply looking at your gut microbiome. My dad went through chemotherapy and he was healthy, and the chemotherapy almost killed him. He couldn't walk, he couldn't talk, he couldn't get up from the bed. I stopped his chemotherapy. And now it's going to be what it's going to be. And I told my dad, I said, I don't know if I can save you, but I can promise you something, that I will make sure that no one else suffers from it. And what I'm doing now is really just doing everything I can to make sure no one else suffers. There is no reason for any one of us to have a chronic disease ever. I mean, there is no reason. It's not something you wake up in the morning and you say, you know, honey, I was out last night, I might have caught diabetes, or I might have caught obesity, or I might have caught cancer. It's not something that happens overnight. It happens over a long period of time because you have a long period of chronic inflammation.
And we got to understand that dynamic state as it's shifting, and then make the predictions. And
so basically, this thing, you know, is first of all, you know, we didn't want to make it like a medical kit. So we made it beautiful so that, you know, it at least looks like a product that you will, even after everything, you will keep the box. It's beautiful, if nothing else, for jewelry. Right? In this box, it's really simple. I mean, there is another thread. And
careful, my second sample is in there.
Oops. And really, inside there is really very few things. There is basically a toilet seat and a test tube. And you touch the, you know, toilet seat, the poop, touch it, put in the test tube, prepaid envelope, and you send it. And 10 days later, you essentially have on your phone everything that's happening inside your gut. What's the inflammation, what's your digestive going on, what's your metabolic thing going on, every single organism, how active it is. But most importantly, we tell you the foods that are bad for you. And here's very interesting, there is not a day goes by I don't get an email or a video from someone that says you changed my life. People who have had joint pains for 10, 20 years, they're disappearing. That was autoimmune rheumatoid arthritis. I have people who are saying their acne is gone, their eczema is gone. Almost everyone is losing weight because obesity comes from inflammation, not because you're eating too much food. We have people who are now telling us about, acne, eczema, autoimmune diseases, and obesity, diabetes. Couple of people really shocked me. One woman posted on Facebook and said, my eyesight improved. And the 3 other people jumped on it and said, me too. And I'm thinking, eyesight? It turns out some of the vitamins being produced by the gut, whether it's a vitamin A or vitamin D, something magical is happening here. We don't know all the things that are there, but we do know when we fix the leaky gut and the inflammation, magical things happen.
And that's what the key is to fix the
leaky gut and the inflammation in the gut.
And you analyze and tell them this is what a really important change in the way that you eat, because food is medicine.
Yeah. So interestingly, the reason I'm willing to tell you the names, some of the names, and is because they sent us the testimonial that we put them on our website now. Reese knows Tammy Lakes, who is a head of digital for Singularity University. She tells me that she has been sick for 8 months, throwing up 8 times a day and diarrhea. Went to all the doctors, everything, and they told her to start eating healthy. And she said, there's nothing worked, nothing was going on. And I was at the board meeting and they told me, he said, look, I can't believe you're telling me this thing works. I'm going to try it. And she told me 3 weeks later, all her symptoms stopped. And I said, what happened? What did we do? And she said, you told me not to eat spinach, broccoli, and corn. I was on a gluten-free diet eating corn, and they told me I was supposed to be eating healthy and no carb, so I was eating broccoli and spinach. And those were exactly what was causing her all the issues. And just avoiding those 3 foods is what caused her to get better. I have this, one of my investors is a Bold Ventures.
In this case, was it that inside of her she could not process?
And causing inflammation, massive
inflammation. And then you're able to tell what is inside that you cannot break down, that is harmful for you, that causes inflammation. Mm-hmm. And what is actually really good for you.
And what foods you should be eating and what food you should not be eating. And that's simple, right? But it looks at, and now in the new version that's coming out in 2 weeks, every food will tell you why. So we no longer the voodoo magic. You click, why are you asking me to eat ginger? Boom, here's why. Why did you tell me not to eat this?
And then you're linking the ginger with a specific microbe.
Yeah. Other
that
things
you have too much or too little of.
Other things we also did is very interesting. We took 1,000 people, 1,000 people. We put a continuous glucose monitoring on them, and then we fed them 55,000 different foods. And we monitored, can we predict just by looking at the things that are being produced in your gut, what type of glucose response or the glycemic response you're going to get. And it shocked us. Everyone thought that things like almonds are the best snack. You pop them in because they have no glycemic response. We found people who had 10 times or 20 times higher response with almonds than bread. And once we did finish the study, now we are able to predict just by looking at your gut. We can tell you when you eat carrot, what is the glycemic response, the insulin response you're going to get. Because when you have too much insulin in your body, it's going to cause inflammation. So we can now predict just by on that. Simply looking at your gut, we can predict what food is good for you and what food is bad for you. Right? It is unbelievable to me. I never thought in my life I'm going to ever get an email from someone telling you that you changed my life. And some of you might have heard my podcast on Tom Bilyeu about health theory. It's his wife who has been so sick for 8 to 10 years. And I was on his podcast and he said at the end, he said, you gave me my wife back. I will sacrifice a goat for you. Right? I never thought, he thought I lost her. And he said, she's now back to normal. And I'm thinking, me being a software guy, what are my chances of ever changing people's life? It's because I cared enough to do it. I cared enough to dedicate 5 years of my life. I said, I'm going to fix this problem. Interesting thing is, since we use a lot of AI and artificial intelligence in analyzing all the data, as you can imagine, is our second highest cost after sequencing is Amazon Web Service. Amount of data we analyze. It only can be done through AI. As you can imagine, we now have tens of thousands of people in the last couple of months that have signed up, and we have massive amount of information. Every time a person signs up, not only makes them better, makes everyone before them better, and contributes to the humanity going forward to everyone else better. Every one of you who signs up, just know that once we have 1 million people signed up, we will have all the information we will need to be able to solve all chronic diseases. So I'm here to ask for your help. Help us, because I am not a marketeer. I don't know how to spread the word. Someone here can help me. If we can get people to sign up and use the service, we make no money on it. This thing used to be $5,000. When we launched at $1,000. We reduced the cost to $399. Our cost came down to $299. We now discount that by $100, so you can buy that for $299. In fact, when you go to, I don't know if your code simulation gives you.
Still works, yeah.
So viome.com/simulation, you'll get $100 off. And if it's not working, just go to viome.com/friend of Naveen, and you'll get the $100 off.
Naveen, so
friend of Naveen.
This is really important. You're taking this initial conversation of moonshots and you're looping it into this way of you find something that you want to help the world with. And as you go and build that thing that helps make the world a better place, that then you rally together these amazing responses that you're getting from people about the value that you're providing to them.
And that's what creates not only a great company, but also creates something that you can be proud of.
Yep.
Someday, we will all have to look back in the mirror. What did we do with our life? What did we do that was meaningful that we gave back to the society? And even if you don't do something on your own, if you can help be part of the community that helps achieve that, is really only way we will do it. Pharmaceutical companies are relying on the fact that humanity will never come together. We will never come together. And they know they can continue to victimize us. Because anytime when we are sick, we are helpless and hopeless. When we are helpless and hopeless, it's guaranteed someone is going to victimize you. And our healthcare system will do that for us. I was the first person went on a CNBC when I started this company, and I said, pharmaceutical companies have become parasite on humanity. And I believe the humanity will come together to kill this parasite. And that's what I'm asking. Let's kill those parasites.
The food is the medicine.
So by the way, this is very interesting. We are talking about all this science we talked about, and here is Alan. What he's quoting is Hippocrates, 2,400 years ago. He said he was a doctor. You know what he said? All diseases begin in the gut. Then he said, one man's food is another man's poison. Spinach is not good for everyone, right? And then he said, let food be thy medicine, let thy medicine be the food. That's it. It took us billions of dollars and all these advanced science to go back to what we knew. All diseases start in the gut. Right?
So this, you also work on so much philanthropy, not just the, you know, the Moonshots with XPRIZE as well, the $1 million Women's Safety XPRIZE that was just funded. That was amazing and just had recipients. And then now the next iterations of the XPRIZE are looking great. Naveen, the work in philanthropy, the work in Moonshots, the work with microbiome, the work with Moon Express is all very inspirational.